I'm sure everyone at least once heard about the submarine, the tank, or have ever seen a plane or a drone. But have you ever wondered when were those created and improved? How they broke barriers? Well, the World War One was the beginning of it all. Actually, the improvement of it all.
I think one really clear way of understanding the shift in World War I in terms of technology is that soldiers rode in on horses and they left in airplanes.
What they don't understand is the collision of technologies.
A lot of the armaments you see in World War I had been used before: submarines, trench warfare, Gatling guns, machine guns. What happens during World War I is that these become mature and these become even more destructive.
The first one we were talking about is the submarine.
The submarines were used in the war, especially by the militaries, because when underwater, they are harder to be identified and destroyed. The first use of the submarine in the warfare was on September 7, 1776, attaching a time bomb to the New York harbor. Submarines nowadays are still used by the military as part of Navy forces, protecting aircraft carriers, performing reconnaissance, and carrying out other tasks. Submarines are also used in other areas such as marine research, undersea exploration, and salvage missions. Some submarines can remain submerged for months at a time.
Apart from the submarine, there were more important creations during the war.
Airplanes had an important part in World War I, mainly by the military at the end of the war. Before the invention, people tried to fly as birds, but we know it wasn't that successful. Beginning in 1783, they also tried the balloons, but as they needed the wind to fly, it was not the best option too. The danger for soldiers in war trenches also came from the sky, so airplanes were first used for flying above the enemies to determine their positions and movements. As the war progressed, both sides began to use aircraft to drop bombs on strategic enemy locations. The first planes used for bombings could only carry small bombs and were very vulnerable to attack from the ground. By the end of the war, faster long-range bombers were built that could carry a much larger weight of bombs. Today, airplanes are used to transport people, goods, and military equipment around the world, as well as for recreational purposes.
Along with the creation of the big airplane, drones were also discovered during the same time.
Unmanned, remote-control aircraft have been around longer than most people think. The catering bug, for instance, was developed during World War I. It was a bomb-carrying unpiloted biplane that flew on a preset course to its target. One count against unpiloted aircraft was that every time one was used, an airplane and some complex machinery was destroyed. This made the use of drones an expensive operation. To say nothing of the fact that once was launched, there was no way to alter its course. They wanted to combine cheapness, power of the rocket, and control of the plane in one machine. To solve this problem, Dr. Walden devised a rocket that could be steered by the pilot after it was launched. His missile was intended to be air-launched against ground targets. It will be controlled by radio signals from the mother aircraft.
Besides all of these, hydrophones were also war creations.
The first hydrophone was invented in 1914 by Reginald Fessenden, a Canadian inventor who actually started working on the idea as a way to locate icebergs following the Titanic disaster. However, it was of limited use because it could not tell the direction of an underwater object, only the distance. The first war hydrophones were improved during World War I by British, American, and French scientists, and they lowered the risk of German U-boat attacks, which were a big threat. Hydrophones, in a better version of it, are still used today for underwater seismology, aquatic research, and recording deep-sea sounds.
As well as the flying affairs, tanks were also developed during wartime.
World War I marked the first use of the tank as a combat system, replacing cavalry in the role of punching through the enemy's defenses. Trench warfare and machine gun fire necessitated this battlefield evolution. Nowadays, tanks are still used, but not for common use. Every developed nation today has their own main battle tank, which is the mainstay of their armored forces' offensive capability.
Last but not least, the X-ray machine, that was known by being the savior of the war, was also developed during this time.
Do you know who was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize? And do you know it was the same that brought X-ray machines to the war? Marie Curie, back in 1914, gathered her entire stock of radium, put in a lead liner container, transported it by train to Bordeaux, 375 miles away from Paris, and left it in a safety deposit box at a local bank. She then returned to Paris, confident that she would reclaim her radium after France won the war. She decided to join the fight, but using her scientific skills not to make weapons, but to save lives. When Germany attacked France in 1914, Marie Curie realized she needed to help soldiers injured and she needed a way to do just that. She convinced manufacturers to turn their cars into vans, so she could carry X-ray equipment on them. She named these vans the Petite Curies, and many hospitals didn't even know X-ray departments at the time, so this was an amazing accomplishment. Marie Curie, her daughter, and a doctor drove around treating the French soldiers in the vans. The vans were filled with technology and books of anatomy. The machines could find bullets in soldiers undetectable by eye. Doctors then knew where to revolutionize modern X-rays and medical technology. Even today, hospitals all around the world X-rays aren't driven by cars, but are easily accessible by surgeons. And it's by seeing all of that we can conclude without these developments during World War I, the world wouldn't be the same nowadays.